Okay. If you have a question or comment, but you're not comfortable coming up to the microphone, just raise your hand and we'll grab the microphone and bring it to you so that you don't need to worry about not being heard. Okay? Any questions as we get started? Have I forgotten anything? Okay. So, Chris Hyland, our board secretary, is going to speak to and present the bylaw amendment on Article 7.
Morning, everybody. We've made revisions to our bylaws each of the last couple of years based on experience, kind of tweaking things, and a lot of those changes have been around how the board operates and the membership of the board of trustees. Last year, we, membership, all of you, adopted a change to the board membership to reduce the number of trustees from 9 to 7. That was done based on a lot of research that the Leadership Development Committee had done about optimum board size for efficiency and getting the work done. Having now spent a year with a 7-member board of trustees, the board believes that it would be optimum for us to have the option of having 7 members or 9 members on the board from year to year. And there are a couple of reasons for that. In my mind, the biggest reason, the most important reason, is so that we maintain what I call a leadership pipeline, so that we have can bring new folks onto the board, new trustees on, and they can learn about the fellowship's operations and kind of just get the feel of things without them having to step directly up to an officer position on the board. And we think that having a 9-member board will facilitate that, most importantly. We now have a provision in the bylaws that permits the office of president and the office of co-president to be shared between 2 people. One of the effects of that is, in any given year, if we have co-presidents and co-presidents-elect, that would mean we have 6 officers. If you add the treasurer and the secretary. 6 officers among a 6-member board of trustees doesn't leave a lot of room for new folks to come on, learn the ropes, and get ready to step up into one of those positions. So that's the main reason for having the option of increasing the number of board members to 9 in a given year. Workload may also be a factor. If we expect a lot going on, it will be helpful to have 2 additional trustees at times.
May I interrupt for a minute?
You bet.
Yes. Would you please speak louder and then use the microphone closer to your lips?
You got it, Bob. Is that better?
Yes. Could you speak louder and use the microphone closer to your face?
Okay. Got it. I don't usually have trouble talking loudly. True. The grief you get from your fellow trustees. The process that we'll use, that the board will use, I'm sorry, early in each calendar year, the board will start looking at what the workload looks like for the following year, starting in July. But I think that whether the board has 7 or 9 members in a given year may depend in part on how much interest there is in serving on the board. And if we have, interest from, folks who have not served on the board in joining the board, then we'd like to make sure there's room for those folks. And that would be a good reason to have a 9-member board in a given year. Process-wise, the board will work closely with the Leadership Development Committee in the early part of the calendar year and make that decision on whether to go with 7 or 9 members for the next year. And all of the trustees will be elected by the membership at the annual meeting in May or June. So the board will not appoint 2 additional members. Everyone will be elected by you, the members. And that's the long and short of it. I'm happy to answer questions.
I have put the text of the suggested amendment on the slides right now.
Thanks, Phil.
Do people run as trustees or as officers for the board? In other words, if you run as a trustee, then the board could make its own appointments for who would have different offices. Which way do they run?
That's a good question, Bob. The bylaws provide for a certain number of trustees and the officers are included in that number of trustees. And the membership elects the officers. So if you look at the candidate slate that will be voted on next week, you've got candidates for the Board of Trustees who are designated for each of the officer positions. So y'all are voting on each of the officers as well as the trustees.
Good morning, and thank you for doing this. And this is, I think, the biggest audience we've ever had for this pre-meeting, so bravo to all of us. Bravi. The awkward number of 8, of course, is left out of your proposal, obviously, because you can't deal with a tie on any vote. I might suggest that if you get 8 candidates from the process, then another possibility would be to put someone on in a listening and non-voting member, so you have that person in place, because it would be kind of a shame to get 8 and have to turn somebody down, not filling that, and just in the interest of continuing to build the leadership team going. So.
I think that's a good idea, Lloyd. Every board has situations where a member of a board has to resign in the middle of a term, and so it's not uncommon for boards to, at any given time, actually have an even number of members. But the rules provide for that by requiring, thank you, by requiring a certain number of yes votes at a meeting for any decision to be made. So at least on a temporary basis, that's not an issue, but the idea of appointing an 8th or electing 8 trustees, possibly with one as a non-voting member, might make some sense. So I'll give that some thought over the next month or so.
Yeah, just wanted to remind everybody who comes up to the microphone over there, that's the most delicious ice cream cone you've ever had. So be very, very close to it when you're speaking, so that make sure that the Zoom folks, I have increased the volume on Zoom, but let's make sure they can hear those questions as well. Chris, you're doing great with the mic. Keep it up.
Anyone else in the great room? Cindy? Grab your ice cream cone.
And I can reach it. I just have a quick question. Have we been able to keep a youth member as far as a trustee member? A youth or junior person? Oh, okay. That's kind of a shame.
You want to answer that out loud, though?
Sure. We have not had a youth member of the board for, I think, about 2 years, since just before, actually, probably 3 years now. Yeah. The bylaws do provide to have a member of the congregation who is not yet 18 serve on the Board of Trustees as a non-voting member in order to bring that perspective. I think we'll jot that down as an idea now that we've got some new members, some new energetic members joining the fellowship. We'll give some thought to whether there's anybody in our under 18 crowd who might be interested in serving on the board. Thanks for the idea.
Mary Lee, anyone on Zoom wish to speak to us?
No one has their hand raised.
Okay. No more discussion on the bylaw amendment. All right, then we are going to move on to the awesome Dave Hutchison, who is chair of our finance committee, and he will present it's not actually the 22-23 budget. It's actually the 23-24 budget, but you all knew that.
Hi, okay, now we're going to talk about numbers and budget stuff, and can everybody hear me now? I'm going to put this in my mouth, perhaps. I will try to be brief, so bear with me here, and there'll be time for questions, and Andrea's here if I can't answer anything, so I think we've got you covered. Before we get into the new budget in further comments, I just want to give you a short report of our current financial condition. I'm pleased to say that our financial condition remains sound, and after an increase this year, our total operational reserves are now up to $124,500, and that will cover almost 4 months of operational expense should we ever encounter a sudden and significant loss of income. So it gives us some time to get our game together to figure out a plan B. So that reserve is still intact. Our uncommitted working capital cash is still at a favorable level at $85,000. And just be advised, that will change based on cash flow and final payments on current year pledges for the remainder of the fiscal year. But we are indeed fortunate to have this available cash to meet those unbudgeted one-time expenses that do happen that's necessary to keep our fellowship functioning. For the first 10 months of this current fiscal year, we're still on target with our operating budget through the end of April. For the full fiscal year, we budgeted a net deficit of $1,700 for this current fiscal year. And if pledges remain, if the remaining pledges are completed and paid on time, I anticipate we'll be pretty close to meeting our total net operating budget for this current fiscal year. Now, let me say a few words about the new budget, and if you could put up the summary, Philip, that would be good. Yes, okay. Now, let's look at that budget summary. First thing I want you to do, Philip, is just scroll down to the bottom line. Right there, okay, you'll see that last line. It's in the green and it says $356. This is a balanced budget, and we're positive $356 income over revenue. So this is a balanced budget. I just wanted to start with that point. Now you can go back up to the top, and let's look at the income side of the proposed budget. The first line on the budget is, well, first of all, you'll see their total income, $410,000. We have a $410,000 budget for the new fiscal year, and that's just a little less than our current budget of $413,000. So the first question you want to ask is, okay, where are the dollars coming from to fund this budget? So looking at the income budget there, the very first line, it indicates our budgeted pledge income. You'll see it's budgeted for $359,000. Now, that's $25,000 higher than what we budgeted for this year, and that is really because of the very favorable stewardship campaign results that we had for this year, and I just want to say thank you, Stewardship Committee. although we budgeted $359,000, the actual amount raised was over $366,000, but for budgeting purposes, we discount that gross amount by 2% to account for the situations where people move out of town or for whatever reason are just unable to complete their pledge. The second thing I wanted to mention about the income budget is the line for building use rental income. We budgeted that for $8,600 this year. That's an increase over this current year. This is a new endeavor that the church is making to make an effort to increase our rental income because we're looking for other sources of income in addition to our pledge income. So we budgeted $8,600 there. And I will make a shout out to Philip that he and his team met their fundraising auction total, raising just over $20,000 for this current that we just had, the auction that we just had. And because of that success, we're budgeting a little more for next year's auction at $22,000. Thank you, Philip. All right. The auction was a lot of fun this year, I have to say. So our total income budget is $410,000. Now let's take a few items of our expense budget. As always, the largest expense item is our staff compensation, and you can see we're at $244,000. That's actually a small decrease of $11,000 over our current year budget, and that's primarily because our interim minister will start in the middle of August, so we can budget 10 and a half months of salary for the minister position, so that gives us a little wiggle room on the budget. Just a note on that $244,000, that's almost 60% of our budget, and don't misunderstand me, that's not a complaint. That's very typical of churches our size, that it could be 60, 70%. So we're right in the range of compensation budgets. We do strive to follow the UUA compensation guidelines, and the church budgets want to compensate our staff fairly, so that will always be a major part of our budget, as it should be. The second expense category that I wanted to mention is our facilities line, which is the second largest, is a little over $52,000. And we've increased that this year, most of which is because of our property insurance took a sharp increase because of some claims we've had over the last couple of years. And we increased some of our maintenance and building expenses to support the efforts of our the new rental building use endeavor, as well as increased expenses for grounds improvement. The other expense that I want to mention is the social justice budget, which is part of the committee's expense line. You'll see that $9,400 there after the committee's budget line, as $6,000 of that is for social justice issues. And that $6,000 is in addition to the monies that we receive and distribute to other charities through our Share the Plate offerings every Sunday. And that's basically the comments that I just wanted to introduce our new budget. And so to close, we present a balanced budget. We're happy to have a balanced budget. A lot of churches have to have very large deficit budgets. So we are happy to present you with our proposal for a balanced budget, $410,000. And we think it's a good budget. We're covering some important initiatives, and I'll just turn the mic back to Adrian and answer your questions if you have any. Yes.
First thing I want to say is this is really nicely presented, easy for a layman to follow. Thank you so much. And I also appreciate the additional funds for our beautiful grounds. That's the only way we're going to get more people to come and use our beautiful facility, is to make it more presentable. And then also, thank you for the debt retirement date. We've wondered about that.
That's always a question every year.
Yeah.
So our mortgage matures in May of 33, so we still have 10 years to go.
Okay, thank you so much.
So I don't know, how's this better? Is good? So I'm not really sure about if this is the right place for me to ask, but there was a proposal for lights for the choir, and then it was not followed through, and I'd heard something about picnic tables.
Was that a legacy grant proposal?
I believe it was, yes.
Okay. Legacy Grant makes their own decisions based on what they can fund year
So
to
that
year.
wouldn't be here then?
We did not put that in the budget if it was a Legacy Grant proposal.
Okay,
Correct.
all right.
Anyone else in the great room? Questions or comments on the budget? Mary? Anyone on Zoom?
No one on Zoom.
Okay, thank you. Finance Committee is amazing. And they are amazing, and stewardship is amazing, and all of us are amazing. We worked very hard to make all this come true, so it's happening. All right, Nancy Oakley, will you please? Yes, I think that would be wonderful if you're comfortable.
We have a chair waiting for you.
So the first part of this presentation is the slate. The slate. Okay. It's coming. Before we get to that, I just want to thank everybody who stepped up this year and served in leadership on all of our committees, the board, other areas. We are an amazing group of people, and we are so thankful that so many of our fellowship steps up and makes this place run. It is a challenge always, on the other hand, to fill some of these committees and the board. And I just want to put a shout out to, there are so many people here who have done, filled these positions for years and keep stepping up, and we really appreciate all of you who do that. And we have a group of new folks that we're really excited to bring into leadership. So we want to be sure that we connect with all of those people and individually, go and say hi, sit by them and start talking to them, and that's our future, and we really appreciate that. And also, some of you who have done this for years and years, we know that we need to give some of you a rest. That's why we're really looking forward to having new people come in. So don't feel shy. If any of you think that any of these positions you might be interested in, we'd love to talk to you. We talk to as many people as we can. We sometimes overlook folks, but anyway, I just want to thank everybody who's stepped up this year. It's been a challenging year, and next year's going to be an interesting year too. We are excited, though. I'm just thinking if the slate's he's still working on that. Okay. So I think you all had a chance, probably, if you got your packet, to look at the slate. The only thing that's interesting about it this year that I wanted to point out is because of the bylaw amendment that we discussed, we will either have 9 or 7. And so we put it out this way, with there's 2 asterisks, whatever. And if the proposed amendment does not pass, then 2 of the 9 candidates on this list will not be put up for election. And we just wanted to clarify that so that you do know what could happen, whichever way the vote goes. We also wanted to put the current, even though some people are on the slate, they've already been elected in years past. We're not re-electing. If they've already been elected, they're elected, but we just wanted to be sure you know who is on the slate for the board and for all the committees, or the 3 committees that you all vote on as members. We've been lucky that several people have agreed to stay on and continue their leadership knowledge, and we appreciate that. And though we also know we can't continue to just, have people ask them to expect them to serve again and again. And that's why we really are working hard, and we will continue to work hard to build that pipeline like that Chris suggested. So anyway, this is the slate. And yes, I have a question.
Tracy, will you come up? That's okay. Zoom can't hear you.
On the slide, there was one person that showed till 2025. Is that correct, or should it be 2020?
Some of the positions actually are 2 years, and some of them are 3 years. And so, yes, those, and I'm not saying we didn't mess up on some of them, so if any of you see your name on there with a number, it gets really confusing sometimes, because we do have, as we've said, people who in the middle of their term they have to leave, then we find somebody to fill in for a year or so, and then some people are on for 3 years, and then they continue to be on, they agree to serve. So yeah, these terms can be kind of all over the place. In a perfect world, it would be more consistent. But we also we need staggered people on committees too. And we have had the case where some committees, everybody came on at the same year and everybody's leaving at the same year, and that's really not good. So it just gets, it's more complicated than you would think, because we're all, like we said, we move, we get, things change, people can't finish, people step up, and, so it's hard sometimes to keep it all straight. So anyway, Betty has a question.
To follow up with your last comments, it's not clear to me which one of these peoples will be elected and which are already in their elected position.
Well, in the years, okay, that's a good question, Betty. What we tried to do was, in parentheses, if it's someone who's already in a position, I put currently serving, so that you would know that you're not re-electing that person. They're already currently in this position. If the currently serving is not there, then this means we are voting on the folks that don't have that comment. And again, some of them are 2 years, some of them are 1 year, some of them are 3 years, because of the different bylaws for all of the different positions. So it does get a little wonky sometimes. I understand that it gets a little confusing. Emily.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm going to make an observation that I've had being a member of the last 2 UU churches I belong to. And I think that I know I appreciate the work that the LDC does, but I think that there's a lot of opportunities missed, and we can find more people. We have to make a direct invitation to them. We can't just ask. We need people on this committee. We need to actually walk up to people and ask them, because I have observed this, that we continuously have the same names, and we need, in order to get new blood in, we need to make a more concerted effort to invite personally people to run. Again, I appreciate the work of the LDC, but I think that we need to do a little bit better job. Thank you.
And I appreciate that, Emily, and I actually would appreciate if you know, if you would be interested in joining LDC, you would be a great place. Yeah. No, I understand what you're saying, and we do a lot of personal conversations, but we can do better, and I know we can. It's, you know, it's a lot. There's 200 members, and there's 4 of us, and, you know, or 5 of us when we have a full committee, but we do a lot of personal, we do miss people, and we don't want to, you know, overwhelm new people. Like the minute they walk in the door, say, all right, we've got a slot for you, you know. So we have to kind of balance that, and we do know, and Sheila, you had your hand up. We know that we want to work closely with membership as well, and we do have a liaison on our committee, Melissa, that works with membership to kind of help us feed new folks and get, you know, an understanding what they're interested in, so we can follow up with those people.
Hi, I'm Sheila, and I just learned, and maybe you all don't know, that some people do step up after they've served as president and they stay on the board. And it's not really written in the bylaws. There's nothing in the bylaws to ask these people to do that. But I'm looking at these first 2 people here. Chris stayed for an extra year, right? And Adrian, you're going to stay, but you need to run. Is that how it works? And there will never be any change to that? I mean, we won't be, well, I guess that's a future year amendment. Never mind. But I think it is a great idea, because once they've served as president, they stay on the board to guide, and, you know, they've learned so many things. So please thank these first 2 people who did that.
Yeah, that's true. We have talked about the continuity is important. The other thing we learned is that, boy, there's so much going on in the background that we sometimes don't know about. So when we do talk to people and we say, hey, are you interested in one of our committees? They, well, you know, I'm on buildings and grounds, I'm on the Zoom, I'm a greeter, I'm on social justice, you know, and it's amazing the work. I'm a worship associate, and all of these things, you know, there's so many ways that we all serve this organization, so that, you know, even though sometimes we have a difficulty in finding people for our committees, when we talk to people, everybody's doing so much to keep our UU going. So, you know, it's truly amazing. We started to we actually keep notes on our conversations, and we go back and we go, wow, that person's doing 15 other things. You know, maybe we should give that person a break. But, you know, so we do try to keep a pulse on what everybody's doing. And everybody here, I'm looking out here, and every single person that I know is, in some way, is serving this, you know. So I appreciate everybody's work. They really are all doing amazing work. So anything else? Any other questions? Oh, I'm sorry, Mary, is there anyone on Zoom who has a question or a comment?
Nope.
Good, okay. No, nope.
Thanks, Nancy. Nancy rolled the candidate slate and the LDC report all into one. So we have checked off. No, sorry, that was perfect. I think you all know, but I will just make sure that we have 3 committees of the fellowship, and those are the 3 committees that present at the annual meeting. So that is why we are specifically hearing from Leadership Development. Now we're going to hear from Terry DeBarger for COSM, the Committee on Shared Ministry, and then we'll hear from Will Bolin, who's here to speak about the Legacy Committee and what they were able to do for grants this year. Give a brief report. Okay, so that's why we hear from these specific. It's part of our shared governance, and that's why we're all sitting here today listening and participating, because it's really important. Nobody else tells us what to do. We tell ourselves what to do. Okay, Terry.
Oh, and with that, I get to share with you the great spiritual growth of yourself as an individual and the fellowship by talking about the Committee on Shared Ministry. Doesn't that just sound spiritually evocative? Doesn't it? Hello, my name is Terry DeBarger. I'm the current chair of the Committee on Shared Ministry. I have two other committee members here, Billy Lee and Bob Alto, as well as Valerie Cook and Tassie Klaas. And the five of us are a committee that advises the minister and monitors and evaluates the health of the ministries of the fellowship. So what that means is we meet monthly with the minister. We will be taking a hiatus this summer. And come August, we will be preparing a report on the health of the ministries of the fellowship as well as an evaluation of the minister. Now, what that will look like this year is, as is often the case, somewhat up in the air because we will have an interim minister, knock on wood. We will have an interim minister, and so that evaluation will be for their first 6 months in the fellowship, 8 months in the fellowship, and going forward, what will they do as we seek a called minister. As far as evaluating the health of the ministries, this year we were pretty heavily involved with helping Reverend Foster transition from her full-time role to retirement. So our evaluation of the ministries was much more informal than we will be doing next year. And our evaluation of the ministries is essentially we have some functioning committees that are working well. We have some committees that are to some degree or another struggling for a variety of reasons. And then we have some, I just wanted to remind that there are some committees that are sort of defunct that could be revived, or we just want to acknowledge that that can happen from time to time. So for example, Arts and Aesthetics existed, now it does not. There's no reason it couldn't be revived should somebody have an interest in doing that. And so we have several, there's been some concern, for example, lately about safety committee, and that as a committee hasn't been operational mostly because there hasn't been an interest to make that an ongoing committee. Certainly we can have temporary committees, task forces. So that is something that the congregation or the fellowship could look into, and my impulse is to wait until we have a temporary clergy in place who can help us lead that. What other questions could I answer? What would you like to know from the Committee on Shared Ministry, or have I covered it? Philip.
I know I'm breaking the rules, but Terry, does your committee have any role in the search for the minister?
No. That's easy. We will be advising the minister once she arrives, and we will be meeting, and as a bridge between what the minister wants and what the congregation wants, and we will advise the minister, and then also we'll be seeking input from the fellowship. So if you want to attend to something or address something, you can certainly do it directly, but you can also bring it to Billy Lee, Bob, me, Valerie, Tassie, and say this is of some concern, and whether that's an individual concern or a committee concern. You can certainly bring it to us. So if you're on a committee, expect to be hearing from us in the fall asking you about the conduct of your committee. I will say, just as a general boilerplate rule, the unitary feedback we get about committees is we need greater participation. And so there may be one committee where I was told, well, we don't want to just take anybody. But the other committees are all in agreement that greater participation from members would be helpful in the conduct of the work of their committee. So, having said that, I look out across the room and I see many, past board presidents, past members of the Committee on Shared Ministry, people who are actively involved in all the ministries of the fellowship, including the choir and RE, and I would just say, let us continue to do that and consider how your involvement could be perhaps extended, or who you might invite personally to join in another dimension of UUF&N. and I see Lloyd moving, now I can become fearful. Well, now you have to ask a question.
My understanding, at least in previous fellowships and probably here, that the minister, be it interim or permanent, is considered an ad hoc, ex officio, I should say, member of every committee. I presume we make that invitation anyway. Is there a recommendation either from COSM or the board as to which ones we should strongly suggest that this interim minister attend at least occasionally? We didn't see our last minister often in finance, I will say that.
Excuse me. That would certainly be something we would cover probably in our first meeting with the new minister. And I would expect as the person we have, can I say anything about that?
Okay, we're going to take a little commercial break for just a second. I've been waiting to make an announcement as a member of the interim search committee because I didn't want to jinx it. So now we do have a signed contract with a new interim minister. Her name is Reverend Shelley Thompson. She is currently an interim in Calgary, Canada, and she is excited to join us in the middle of August, like Dave mentioned, for the budget. And she is going to send us a little video next week at the annual meeting that we can play. I just heard that, Philip and Emily. I don't have the video from her yet. So you'll get to meet her, see her on the screen at least next week. So the interim search committee worked really hard, and we had great candidates, and this is the one who we selected and who also selected us, so it was a match. Reverend Shelley will also be putting together a transitions team as part of her experience with us, so she will be speaking to that, I think, when she comes, in terms of what Lloyd just asked, and also be working closely with COSM. She said that's an important committee that she uses in order to know what's going on in the fellowship.
Hello, Nancy.
Just one little question about the announcement. Since she's currently an interim minister in Calgary, that brought to my mind this question, which is, where did she go to school, and is she an American citizen? Because we have had some difficulty in the past.
We've had Canadian experience.
When I was chair.
She's an American citizen. She is from California originally, and she has served in different places in the United States. I'm trying to remember: Westport, Connecticut, Richmond, Virginia, and she is excited to come. I mean, she's had a great experience where she is, but she's excited to get back to the States and be here with us, and also she has family in California and whatnot, so yeah. Does that answer your question? Okay. Bob.
In the spirit of increasing participation that you talked about, Terry, one of the easiest ways to do that is to ask the congregation as a whole, not individuals, but as a whole, to give us feedback on something. That's certainly makes them feel a part of what we're doing. And of all of the committee jobs and roles that people have here, one of the ones that affects all of us directly every Sunday is the role of the minister, whether it's interim or permanent or whoever it is. I don't think that matters. And so insofar as you get involved, Terry, with the evaluation of the minister, whoever it may be, I hope you find a way to include the congregation in that and invite them to give you some of their feedback.
Thanks, Bob. I appreciate the question. To remind people of what we've done in the past, and perhaps other people who have served on the committee could fill in holes that I might leave here. Things that we've done in the past have included online surveys. They've included being in the gathering room after services for getting feedback, having checklists, sort of doing person to person, trying to reach out to individual members. So one time when we did an evaluation of the minister or the ministries, we had a series of questions and we would seek out people, and we would, for the month of March, I think it was, we were looking for feedback from membership. So the last time we did a report, we got feedback from over 50 members, which was considered to be fairly high. If you look at the number of people we have in the room now, we have about 32 people here in the room, so another 10. So that's sort of representative of people who are highly involved and engaged. The fact that we were able to go above that, and membership was a little smaller then as well. So it's absolutely part of what we attempt to do. We try and create a way that anybody who is either brand new and minimally involved or a longtime member with lots of connections to UFNN can express their hopes, dreams, concerns about the minister in particular when we do the evaluation of the minister. And I think that process has worked fairly well before COVID. COVID, of course, threw some things into question, and now we have to get back onto a systematized way of doing that. So, Philip? So, are there questions from anyone else in the room? How about people on Zoom?
Yes, we have two. First is Penny.
Hi, I was wondering, is the caring committee underneath the shared ministry, or is that somewhere else? Thank you.
So the committee on shared ministry did some work with the caring committee because the caring committee is undergoing some transitions of membership and involvement of the people who are on it. The caring committee would be one place I would say we need to, as a fellowship as a whole, refocus our attention on, because there were several people involved, and through a variety of reasons, some of those people are no longer with us or no longer able to be involved. So revitalizing that is something that will be top priority with the Committee on Shared Ministry when we have a new minister, in terms of, all right, how do we proceed with the very involved people who are still remain on the caring committee, but how do we bring in people who would be willing to do some of that ministry work as well? But it's a bit of a pickle. Like it is not a small, it is not an inconsequential committee. It's very consequential, and so we want it to get the attention it deserves.
I just have a comment. These committees, they're long lists, aren't they, for this small congregation? And as I look at the list, some of them have to do with the operation of the congregation itself. Some of them have to do with program. Some of them have to do with social action and social justice issues. I think it would be helpful if we started to think about how these groups of people interact with each other, because stewardship and finance and membership all are intimately related. And I think it's important that we think about this in a wider picture of working together as far as committees are concerned. I think it might be a more effective way and better use of people's time. It would enhance communication so that we know what each group is doing and how it affects each other.
Thank you, Betty. And there is someone else on Zoom?
I think Alan Jordan has a question. He just unraised his hand, but he did have it raised before.
Oh, thank you for recognizing me. Somebody answered my question in the chat, but it was whether the interim minister had come to visit because I didn't recall it and she had not. And it's not part of the process. However, I would like to congratulate everybody for having found a candidate that seems like a great fit. So thank you very much.
I would just also, as somebody who is familiar with the workload of the current president of the board, who is on that committee, there will be another committee to find a long-term minister, a settled minister. And so if you are of a mind to be involved in that process, if you think that is something you have the energy and attention for, I'm sure your involvement in that would be greatly appreciated. As with any of the committees, I know there was a direct ask today to Emily but other people who might want to join LDC. And Bill Quimby mentioned that the choir is a ministry of the fellowship that could use increased participation. So I don't want to be accused of not inviting people to consider what their involvement might be. And so again, the overall message we get as Committee on Shared Ministry is more involvement would be helpful. You can judge how much involvement you're able to give to UUFNN, but I would just encourage you to think about upping that if possible.
Well, coincidentally, I had typed in that I'd like to be considered when you do the committee for a settled minister in the chat. So I'm available to do that if you'd like.
Thank you, Alan. So a couple of things that speak to what Alan said. One is that the board did vote and ratify the interim minister's appointment. There is nothing in the bylaws about what we need to do in terms of selecting that interim minister. It doesn't go to a vote of the membership. That will all be done, obviously, when we get a settled minister. And lots of people are interested in serving in that capacity, and I'm really grateful. We had to pull together really quickly for the interim minister committee because the timeline that the UUA gives is fast. So that happened very quickly. But I think that when we do have our interim minister, and I know that part of what she'll do with us is helping us organize what we want to do going forward to be ready and to put together the search team and all of the components that go with selecting a called minister. So she is prepared as an interim minister to do that with us. And there will be a way that we select committee members for that. And a lot of work will need to be done, so. Her contract is she's committed to 2 years with us. Yeah. Yes, well, through it's not a full 2 years. She starts in August, and then it will be a year, 25 of June. At the end of the fiscal year, I should say. Okay. Okay. So last but not least, I don't want to steal any more time away from Will, because Will Bolin is here to, as the representative of Legacy, to talk about their year as a committee of the fellowship. You want to come up here, Will? And Nancy will give her seat up.
Thank you. Can you hear me all right? Loud enough? Just hold it closer, huh? There it is. All right. Just a few quick comments. The Legacy Fund, which is has been around for a number of years, I don't even know how many here, currently has about $190,000, give or take, in it. It had a pretty poor year last year because it reflects the stock market in many ways and the finances of the country, but it is so far doing fairly well this year. We have Alliance Trust, which is the company that manages it for us. They're aware that we want, and they fulfill the requirement to have environmentally sensitive investments. We meet with them and they advise us annually on things, or more than annually if we request it. We currently have Linda Doro, who leads the committee. Duncan Caldwell is on it. Daniel Pareda, Kathleen Cook just joined us, but we do have a vacant space on it. I will be leaving. I have one more meeting, and then I will be, it's my second time on Legacy, but I will be off of it. So we do have an opening. If there's any perspectives for it, I have not yet heard it, but someone may know about them that I don't. Let's see. We normally give grants each year. We look at requests for things to be done, and last year we did not do it because of the fall in the total value of the fund, but this year we did it. A little smaller than usual. I think it was around 5,000 5 or 6,000 that we approved as the maximum. We got 3 requests. The one that was approved are picnic tables. Chris Packard, I believe, made that request, but that was the one that got approved. And are they here yet? If not, they're close to being here. They're not here yet. Okay. Let's see. Normally we would have a gratitude event each year. We have avoided that since COVID came about. We hope next year will be the possibility of considering that. So we hope that that happens. I think that's about all I have, unless someone has some questions.
Will, could you clarify for us exactly what the mission of the Legacy Committee is in terms of extending funds to who, for what purpose, in what way? I think there's some confusion about that among me and some other people.
Okay, I'm probably not the best person to do that, so Duncan's going to assist me on that. I will say a couple of things about it. One, the things that we approve to support are things that are not part of the regular budget, part of the regular operating budget. Anything else, Duncan, you want to add to it? He may be leaving the room. Duncan's on his way up now, I believe, y'all. Not part of the regular budget that we hope supports the mission of the church. Anything else you want to add, Duncan, to that?
The Legacy Fund is not to support day-to-day operations of the church. It's actually to promote future growth. Grants that we do consider are outside of the normal budget for the church. This year we received 4 grant proposals. One was to have a high school student go back to Washington, D.C. for a climate summit. Another proposal was additional lighting for the choir. A third proposal was to have electric vehicle charging to take advantage of our solar farm that we have in front. And the fourth was to put picnic tables on the grounds. And we felt that that was probably the best proposal this year and dovetailed with the desire to open up the campus to additional uses and stuff like that. So that was the grant proposal we accepted. But our mission is to provide long-term stable funding for the fellowship. It is not day-to-day operations as the budget was laid out by Dave Hutchinson.
Okay. Thank you, Duncan. Any other? Okay.
I understand that, hi, I just wanted to reiterate, I've been singing in choir for about, I don't know, 50 years, and I've never been in a church that has no lighting at night. There is no lighting for the choir at night. None. Because it's all this ambient light. So we have to literally take out lamps to be able to see every Monday. And we really do a lot of singing for you guys. And it was kind of upsetting when this happened. That's all. I just wanted to bring that out.
Okay, thank you.
I'm just curious, what determines how much you spend every year? And why do you only spend a certain amount every year? What are you saving the rest for?
Duncan will address that for us.
Thank you. Market conditions play a role. They certainly played a role last year as we saw our fund drop. We did not feel it was prudent to award grant. We look back at 12 consecutive quarters and we average the amount, what that total is for the 12 quarters. And we have guidelines that say under a certain dollar amount, we can, at the present time, $5,000 is the maximum amount we can award based on the last 12 quarters. Should that amount exceed $200,000 for the last 12 quarters, our bylaws allow us to grant up to $10,000. Again, it's at our discretion and market conditions. So no, we are not touching the principal. We are using interest that we have accrued on the principal.
Okay, thank you, Duncan. Any?
Mary, is there anyone on Zoom who would like to speak to?
There's a couple of things. First of all, Linda Doro said the grant was for $3,500, not $5,000.
This year?
Yes, for the picnic tables. And the other thing is, what is a gratitude event?
The gratitude event, and Duncan, you may want to supplement this for me, but the gratitude event is to recognize those people that have contributed to the Legacy Fund.
It is not just people who have contributed in the past. That is certainly a major consideration for us. But it is also open to people who are interested in further information on the Legacy Committee or possibly may want to make a future donation to the Legacy Committee. So it is not just open to prior donees, period.
Okay, thank you, Duncan. Any others?
Thanks, Will. Thank you, Duncan. Okay, I don't see that anyone else is hopping up to speak to anything. Last chance until next week, but we really hope that next week goes smoothly because we've answered so many of your questions today, so thanks for attending. I look forward to seeing you Sunday, June 11th for the annual meeting. That's when we really need everyone to be here, either on Zoom or in person, to meet our quorum of membership. So if for some reason you can't be in person, do we have a quorum number yet, Chris? Hold tight.
Thanks. I actually just looked at the numbers last evening, and I cannot remember the precise number, but the requirement is that we have a minimum of 30% of our members of record at the annual meeting in order to conduct business. That does not include friends of the fellowship. It includes only people who are full members of the fellowship. Approximately. I believe the quorum requirement for this year is it's either 60 members or 63 members that we'll need to have attending next Sunday.
Does that answer your question, Tracy? Okay. All right. Thank you all for being here, and see you next week. Thank you, Zoom folks, for attending. And have a fabulous week.